Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. We begin with a story of a whistleblower imprisoned by one federal agency but rewarded by another beyond his wildest dreams. Brad Birkenfeld's incredible tale begins in 2007 when he turned evidence against one of the biggest and most secretive banks in the world. Still, he insists the real scandal isn't what happened to him, it's what happened to U.S. taxpayers.
My government, the Department of Justice, put me in jail, and my government, the Internal Revenue Service, paid me the largest award in U.S. history.
As a manager at Switzerland's largest bank, UBS, Bradley Birkenfeld found himself part of a massive, long-standing scheme to help wealthy Americans evade taxes.
There were 19,000 offshore illegal accounts with $20 billion in assets.
Of Americans?
Only of Americans. This was the American desk, and it was based out of Lugano, Geneva, and Zurich.
In 2007, he decided to blow the whistle, the first banker ever to break open the legendary Swiss bank secrecy.
They didn't find me. I sought out the DOJ, the IRS, the SEC, and the U.S. Senate back in 2007. And the problem here is that when I gave them this information, they were hostile towards me at the DOJ from day one.
Birkenfeld suspects hostility from DOJ, the Department of Justice, had something to do with UBS's powerful connections. The bank was a top donor to then-President George W. Bush.
They had over $1 trillion in assets. So you can imagine they had offices worldwide, they had a lot of political influence, and they hired politicians to help them, whether it was for marketing or for representation or for lecturing or what have you.
And there were also politically influential UBS clients referred to as PEPs.
PEPs are politically exposed people. We had a very secretive desk in Zurich in which no one really knows who those account holders were. But we did have a dedicated desk because I knew the gentleman there, and they handled accounts directly out of Washington, D.C.
Birkenfeld says he was stunned when DOJ didn't pursue the first name he turned over of the biggest tax evader he knew about, a foreigner who lived in a multi-million-dollar New York condo and Birkenfeld claims was involved in terrorist financing.
He had made illegal oil sales with Saddam Hussein. He had over $400 million in numbered accounts that were set up for decades. He had his own private phone into my boss's office that only he would call in on.
Birkenfeld says a DOJ attorney told him they simply weren't interested in non-Americans. The agency declined comment for this report. It turns out DOJ was interested in prosecuting Birkenfeld in the tax scheme. They used evidence he provided to build a case against him.
You did serve time.
Oh, I did. Yes, I did serve time.
While he, the whistleblower, was prosecuted, the government worked behind closed doors to cut a deal with his former employer, UBS, which was one of President Obama's top donors. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton took the lead in negotiations with the Swiss foreign minister.
Do you think it was unusual that the Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, intervened in this giant criminal case?
She has no right in getting involved in an international criminal investigation.
And then, in July 2009,
there has been an agreement reached.
The bank agreed to pay a settlement of $780 million. Birkenfeld calls it a sweetheart deal for UBS because it was about $1 billion less than the profit UBS made from the illegal accounts. What's more, UBS would only have to give up 4,450 tax evaders out of 19,000. There was no explanation as to who decided which names were divulged and which ones got conveniently buried.
Why wouldn't you get all of the names?
In essence, the secrecy has been allowed to continue instead of being stopped.
Well, that's precisely it. It's a continuation of Swiss bank secrecy, American style. This was not a real investigation. This was to cover up for the rich and powerful people in this country, the millionaires and billionaires and politicians who had accounts in Switzerland.
Clinton, the Justice Department, and State Department declined comment for this report. Earlier, Clinton defended the deal by saying the Swiss helped the U.S. on many difficult diplomatic fronts, including in Iran and Turkey. Not long after the deal was sealed, President Obama was seen enjoying a round of golf with UBS Chairman for the Americas, Robert Wolf. Wolf told us he didn't know about the deal beforehand, and the U.S. businesses he managed were not under investigation. He went on to become one of Obama's biggest campaign donation bundlers in 2012. And UBS donations to the Clinton Foundation skyrocketed after Hillary helped broker the deal, according to the Wall Street Journal. A Clinton campaign spokesman told the Journal that any suggestions that Clinton was driven by anything but what's in America's best interest would be false, period.
We still don't know who the PEPs were. They should be made public to the American public so they can see who was breaking the law. Most of the other people in this country pay their taxes, but these people had millions, if not billions, offshore. So why is it that those names aren't made public?
There's one final twist to the story. Whistleblowers are entitled to up to 30% of the money collected from tax evaders. With Birkenfeld's evidence, the IRS was able to recoup $5 billion. 1 month after he got out of prison, he got the largest IRS award ever.
How much money?
It was $104 million.
Punished as a villain, yet rewarded as a hero. He says Americans have good reason to wonder what powerful names are among the thousands kept secret in the UBS deal.
We were well aware of many people that had accounts at UBS that were given to political parties. That was a fact. But yet, because it was a numbered account in Switzerland, no one ever thought they'd be exposed. So that's very, very dangerous and something that they don't want to have come out.
Was it worth it to you to expose the practices that you did to get the $100 million plus, but also to spend years in prison?
I think I did it out of courage and doing the right thing for my country, and I think people see that. And certainly I did go to prison for 2.5 years, but the vindication of getting the $104 million really makes me smile, because what it does is sends a message to the DOJ, I beat the system, and I beat you. And now the American people can decide who is right and who is wrong.
A few footnotes. Yes, Birkenfeld got one big check. Yes, they took out taxes, about $31 million, and his first purchases were 2 Porsches. Ahead on Full Measure, women are now allowed in combat. Is the next step registration for the draft?